Welcome to the Revenue Rewired podcast, hosted by StringCan Interactive's visionary CEO, Jay Feitlinger, and no-nonsense COO, Sarah Shepard. We're here to accelerate your revenue and give your marketing purpose. All right, hello and welcome everybody to this next episode of the Revenue Rewired podcast. Hi, Jay.
How's it going, Sarah?
So good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm back from Cabo.
Did you drink a lot of tequila?
No, I didn't. Nothing. No worms.
Ugh, is that in tequila or is that mezcal?
Actually,
Oh,
what's funny is I learned I don't know what you call it, like a tip at one of the bars there, and they were saying how like back in the day, the wealthy people wanted to know which tequila was better, and that's why they put the worm in it to identify it, which I thought was kind of odd that you'd put a worm or a scorpion in things that are better. But yeah, we saw
makes no
scorpions and worms.
sense. Oh
Okay,
my goodness.
I might have misunderstood it. It might have been flip flop. Who knows? But I had definitely a few margaritas.
That was probably their way of trying to get you to drink the worm tequila.
It's complete nonsense.
Look at
Mess with the
you
tourists.
experiencing marketing
Yep.
even in a foreign country. Well, we're glad to have you back, and
Thank you.
we're going to get the best version of Jay today ever.
Hmm.
Well, hello, everybody. We have a personal story to share. It's actually me sharing a personal story, but we're going to get Jay's perspective, which is why your hot leads are not converting. And I'm going to apologize in advance if I feel a little salty through the air on this one, because this is just like, as a marketer, it's kind of like in any other business, like people who are in food service have the ones who have passion for it. They really see opportunities for improvement in other restaurants and services. And so I feel like this is one of those where now that I'm in it, I can't not see it. And so I wanted to share a couple of examples where this is like so obvious. And I know that you all have experienced this in some way, shape, or form, but let's break it down. So, example number one is about over a week ago now. I had a demo for a really awesome podcast support tool. I'm not going to name names because people can change, but I had this great demo. I really was interested in the tool. They had some sort of like Black Friday special, got a couple emails. I did the demo, and in the demo, I said, please follow up with me on my two questions. That will help me make my decision. They are X and Y. Now, Jay, do you think I have heard from this podcast company?
I'm sure you have numerous times.
No, negative, zero, not even a follow
Surprised.
up. Thanks for
I
your
was-
time. And I was like, man, with each day, this girl is getting like less hot. Now, the other example is, now that was sort of a cold email that you and I had gotten and I took on. So the experience in introducing that service to me was different than my next example, which is very hot, like fire hot. So I loved our law firm. I reached out to them to just reestablish, because it's been a long time, knock on wood, that we've used them. And I knew a couple of lawyers had moved on and I wanted to reestablish. Well, the customer experience was just so bad. They basically told me on the phone that I had to fill out a form in order to talk to anyone. And I was like, nope, I can't. Like, I've been a client of yours for 10 years. I just, no. So then I found a lawyer that we had worked with prior at a new firm. And I thought, okay, let's give this a try. I filled out a form on their website, and this was 5 business days ago. I specifically called out the lawyer I wanted to speak to, and I said I'd love to establish myself as a client of yours because I really enjoyed working with her. Jay, do you think I heard back from this law firm?
Many times.
No. I got an automated response that they had received my message, which was actually a very positive sign. But I was like, what is happening? And I think, I don't know, I know you've had this experience, but
Oh, many
in one
times.
word, it makes me feel invisible. I mean,
I just get pissed. I don't know.
we're gonna have to bleep that out. Our first bleep. But and so I was talking to Jay about this. Like as a marketer, it drives me crazy when you've got literally super hot leads or even like lukewarm. And where are you looking inside your business to improve what we call the bottleneck reactive rhythm? And so, Jay, I know you've seen this. Like, first of all, why is this happening?
I mean, again, I think this story you're telling, sadly, I've personally experienced so many times with personal stuff and also even in business with current and prospective clients. And it was honestly one of the main reasons why I wanted us to write the book. Again, a lot of times, organizations come to us and it's about, the lead quantity quality situation, which obviously is one of our bottlenecks discussions. But this whole reactive rhythm thing, I think is a huge opportunity where it's not just about, your team is reactive from, your various different unclear direction, but it's also regarding showing how broken you are inside the company. And I love that you brought up this story because it just seems so simple. And I think, when we've had chats with clients, everyone believes, not everyone, but a lot of companies believe that they are nailed down. Everyone, all the employees are going to work as hard as the owner or owners. And, the problem is not process procedures and reacting like in that way. And so I think for me, it clearly just shows, though, that, companies are not as buttoned up as they believe they are. And that's why I love talking about this one, where, before you go and invest a ton of money and time on new tactics and whatever you're going to try doing for improving your demand generation, you might want to look within and uncover these kind of missed opportunities. And I remember, Sarah, you obviously were more involved in this when I was, but, we had a client like this situation many years ago, maybe a couple years ago, that thought everything was buttoned up. And maybe you could tell that story about a logistical company I'm talking about, where you guys did some experiences to make their eyes wide open regarding this and also their competitors.
Yeah, this is probably the cheapest way possible to determine where you have an issue, and it's secret shop. We called some of their competitors and compared it to the experience that their customers were getting inside their own business. And the results were frankly quite shocking because the experience of one phone call in particular was amazing. It was just like everyone at the table was like, whoa, we got to step up our game. This is incredible. And what's interesting enough is that the owner was like, well, just so you know, behind the scenes, I've worked around this company and they are a hot mess express. So the
Hmm.
actual experience will be very different than the intake process. So it's like, it just goes to show that at each touch point, you can't take the previous touch point for granted. You have a full, it's kind of like each touch point is a new experience and a place to start over to make the whole thing just kind of like turn around or go upside down. It's it can happen that fast. And I will share another experience where this is totally going to be news to you because we haven't chatted, but I had a horrible experience with another company and the customer service in, I don't know, like making it better, or like repairing the relationship has impressed me. And I'm considering something that no one would ever think I would consider, but I also don't want to be super short-sighted. So if I can go through something that horrendous, please DM me if you want details, and consider continuing with someone like that, I think that goes to show that there are mature individuals out there who can be changed by your process and how your company can treat them. So, and I don't know what you think about other solutions like the secret shopping. I know we've had some other ahas, but how does that actually show anyone where the breakdown is or where the bottleneck is?
Yeah, and again, I think, I'm currently going through this process. And as you were talking, I was thinking about that. So, my insurance carrier for our home, wants us to have our home inspected and, brought up to current standards. And so I've been going through the process, equally kind of being curious as a marketer, but also as a customer, going through and filling out forms on these various different roofing websites. And I'll address your question in a second here. It got me thinking where, you know, I'm going on a couple of these sites that are more like lead portals where, that the company is paying a fee for each lead. And so the experience I'm having with these various companies is just, it's so sad, where, they've invested money to pay for the lead. And a couple of them done a much better job in the following up. So they seem like they're okay on chasing the lead. But I would say I think I've had, I don't know, two or three companies in the last maybe week come up, invest the time, come to my house, get up on the freaking roof, do the inspection, email me, quote, and nothing. There's like no drive, no follow up. Did you get my email? Do you have any questions? Or do you want to pay me money and hire me? It's like there's nothing. And so to your point, it's really interesting from a business owner mindset. I think it's this a very simple thing to be aware of where you have problems. Might not be a simple thing to solve because obviously you have humans involved, but from a process perspective, I think I love when you mentioned touch points. It's like every single step that a person goes through from trying to find a company like yours and see if you even are being found or not, that's an opportunity. If they do happen to find you, what's that experience like? Either being forced to fill out a form with 19,000 steps and giving your social security number and your blood type, complete nonsense. You see these companies going through this process. They're making it so hard and so much friction to say, "Hey, I'm interested in hiring you." And then from there, between the sales process and the negotiating and then onboarding, I just feel like all of these opportunities need to be buttoned up. I think again, if to your point on when we started this discussion, again, what most companies do is they feel like, oh, we have no problems with our marketing or sales or ops and all of the, reactive way we're working together. No issues there. So let's just pay more money to get more leads. But it's like this negative compound effect situation going on. If you don't look at it, like look in the mirror, and look at every single step you have in the way. If all that isn't amazing and you don't have this mindset of like always be selling, I think you're going to miss out on big opportunities. And again, I just sadly, and this is one of the areas that our clients end up loving us, but they also hate us at first because we identify these things that feel like we're pouring salt in the wound. Sometimes, sadly, a lot of companies aren't aware of these problems, and a couple of them, are aware of some of them based upon feedback they've had from staff or clients. But end of the day, I think gotta have the process nailed down. And then I think secondly, and probably even more importantly, is you're bringing on people that want to be on the right seat on that bus, and they're going to respect this and work through and making it better. And again, here you look at all these organizations that are investing so much money in getting leads and having their sales team following up. If they don't embrace your so-called hot lead, it's just basically like burning money. It's super sad to me. It just kills me. And so I love that we go through this process with our clients where we want to resolve these bottlenecks. Hopefully they only have, one of the five, but if they have all of them, let's work through that process because if we can't make that foundation solid, no matter how much money you're going to, throw at it, you're going to end up with, frustration and waste of time and money.
Yeah, and it'll compound downstream and make your metrics look bad,
Hmm.
and then the blame will be on marketing, which I don't think that's fair. And as a marketer, sometimes it's like that's why marketing and sales have so much beef is there's like angst that happens because the finger pointing.
Hmm.
But it's just it's really unfair, I think. And for your business to have so many opportunities, you really do have to kind of segment them and create ownership. And there's just so much that could happen. It really is special. But, I might say something that could be controversial here. I don't know because we're still in the middle of it. But in a way, I'm almost looking forward to AI taking over that initial process because maybe that will get me to a human faster than make me, ready to buy with more answers for my questions. I don't really know because we're kind of still in the early stages of figuring out all of that in companies adopting. But, if you've got a sales team who had a hot experience with a lead and they still can't close the deal, it's not making a good case for your human SDRs. And
Hmm.
I hate saying that, but it's like, can we not put our heads in the sand anymore and let's be obvious about the experiences that we're having? It's not really selling it to me that humans are doing a better job. And you know, I I know that's controversial, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Well,
seeing and experiencing.
I love where your head is going on this. As you were talking, this is one of the areas I don't fully agree on with that AI comment you made. I think that the AI part today, at least to your point, I think it definitely help improve the process. But when I'm reflecting a bit as we're talking through all of this, this show, and what I loved how we started it is you kind of told a personal story, and that's where I think I'm conflicted a bit, where I find no matter how many please and thank yous I give, my custom GBTs, I'm just wasting, their money and tokens because they don't care. They don't have that level of empathy. And I think to your point, now that I'm thinking about it, I think, when you ask the question about solutions, obviously I talked through the process that we would follow to help our clients go get this resolved. But I bet you most people that have owned a home, or have traveled or have done anything more than leaving their bedroom, they probably have experienced some disappointment in working with, service-based companies where they, call 10 different plumbers and no one calls back. I know some industries they don't need the business and so they just don't have a horrible job in responding. But then some businesses they have imposter syndrome and they're nervous about closing the deal and they just basically they're losing it, it's because of their own bad process procedure. But when you shared the story, I think of people if you are an executive at a business and you're thinking that potentially you might have this challenge, just take a step back and look at your own personal life and be like, have you, in the years that you've been alive, experienced at least one time a disappointing situation similar to the stories that Sarah and I and my one story about the roofing? And I bet you probably have experienced at least one of them. And so then put yourself in your customer's shoes. It's like, how would you feel if you were them wanting to write you a big check for 50 to $250,000 or whatever your, value is for a customer? And, if you would be disappointed losing that, there's probably opportunity there to have some empathy. And again, I think to Sarah's point, the AI part I think is going to significantly improve all of this, except for I believe the empathy part. And that's where I think humans are, as a strategist, are the one that are leveraging the AI systems to use this. But if you can have your rhythm, more proactive than reactive, I think again you got to start there, which is why I love that we're having this conversation.
I think so too. And it's not a bad thing, even if you are feeling like everything's humming along. That's probably like you're really optimized to give it a shot and review your process and your flow, the experience when it's going really well and look for ways to optimize it.
Yep.
And one of our inspirational books that we read a couple quarters ago was Uncommon Service. And I
Hmm.
think that was one great example. And I saw another article too with this famous chef, and I'm forgetting her name, sorry. But she said, as a restaurateur, you must always be innovating, but just enough that it's a pleasant experience and not overwhelming or it takes away from everything else you've built. And I think that's something to shoot for is give yourself the experience of being a customer in your own business and try not to be in it when you're going through it. Have a little bit of like separation. And what helps me when I'm going through stuff like that is I document the facts, not how I felt in the process. It just makes it a lot easier to say, well, this is what happened. And then you can kind of look back with a little more process minded and say, okay, how did that translate into the other areas or the handoffs, the departments, and those touch point experiences? Because as we've talked about marketers, it sounds really harsh and a little cold and distant to say you must have, 10 to 12 touch points in order to convert a customer. But those touch points, as of right now, are mostly human and digital experiences. And it's your job to optimize those for an excellent customer experience and to delight your customer at every point so that by the time they have truly converted into a raving fan. They've got so much touch point memorabilia experience with you that it's just a joy to work with you. And I think that's like something we're all trying to shoot for is not just transactional experiences, but relationships, which is what AI has really brought to the forefront is kind of exposing that that's an opportunity for all of us in all of our businesses.
Yeah, and I love that. I really appreciate that comment you made about the looking I guess not being in the process when you're going through it. It also reminded me of a example of a story where we had a client, this was pre-COVID. They came to us because they were just churning through their salespeople. I guess one of the executives would every once in a while pop on and listen to the recordings and be so embarrassed by what they were hearing. And they came to us because they were like, we don't know what to do. Like, we're just burning through our salespeople. We can't find anyone good. We don't know if it's a lead quality issue. What's going on here? And I was amazed by, how offended, I guess, the owner was when I'm like, maybe it's you. And it was really interesting conversation to your point, and that made me really think about that. Where I would love if people take away from this show, one, before you again you throw more money at marketing tactics and or blame marketing for you not closing deals, there might be a breakdown in your process, a reactive rhythm, bottleneck. But two, when you're going through and doing either secret shopping or hiring a firm like us or whatever to identify every single step and touch point where you might have a breakdown. But I think three, and probably most importantly, is that again, don't point fingers away from yourself. And I love that comment you made, Sarah, because again, it's like it might not be, very likely might not be the salesperson's fault. They might be a really good salesperson. They might have really good, skill sets and, and empathy and all the right things that make a great salesperson and drive. But end of the day, maybe they've been just taught the wrong way. Everyone's heading in down different directions. And so, again, before you start getting upset at your staff that they're the problem, maybe again you look at what vision and instruction are you giving your team that you're relying so heavily on to grow the business. And if you aren't doing a good job at kind of leading them to the water, it's probably your fault. And I love
Hmm.
that comment you made. I want to make sure I really accentuated that because that one hit a nerve for me. Like I hate when people point fingers at the easy targets. I think it's really more exciting to look within and figure out where you as a leader can do a better job at being a really good Sherpa.
I love that. Yep. Enough said, y'all. Hope you enjoyed this episode because it's really personal for us. And frankly, we would be happy to secret shop anyone and give you like a report. We do that all the time because it's so easy for us to help identify versus, okay, I just found seven things that are wrong. Where do I start? And so that can be overwhelming too. And we
Hmm.
appreciate and recognize that. And, we can help you figure out which pieces to start with and make it's like the edges of the puzzle. You always start with the corners, right?
Maybe.
All right. Well, I know I'm not a great puzzle person either, but well, we hope you all have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to the Revenue Rewired podcast. Send us your questions to podcast@stringcaninteractive.com and follow us for more insights to drive your business forward.